Thanks everybody for your patience as we work through some technical difficulties. I want to welcome everybody and everybody who's on Zoom today. So I hope you can see everything. We are recording today. That was our technical difficulty. We're making sure we could record this. So I just wanted to start out by saying again, thank you for being here. And we're excited to be here because this is part of a project that we're working on called Igniting Bright Futures in partnership with College Boreal. So we'll be delivering some speaker series across Ontario similar to this. So we're hoping to have some other ones in different areas too, but they will always be recorded, so you can always watch them later too. But our first one today is going to be about CWB Group and talking about some certification and qualifications, because I know even for me coming into the CWB Group, and I've been with the foundation now for about a year and a bit, it can get really confusing. So we were hoping this would really help out. So first and foremost, I just wanted to do a land acknowledgement and say thank you to College Boreal first for hosting us tonight. And we would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in the Robertson Huron Treaty Territory, and on the land which we gather is the traditional territory of the Atikamekshek and Ishbek. So I hope I got that right. And today we're just going to have really kind of a chat, fireside chat, where we just talk with some experts here. As you can see them up there, and we're going to get them to introduce themselves very shortly. And then I'm gonna help them with some questions, and then I hope you guys are going to join in and ask them some questions as well at the end. So, and afterwards, there is some coffee, tea, water here, and some snacks. And feel free to have some and talk amongst yourself, get to know everybody, and learn more about who's been welding and who's not, and who wants to learn, things like that. So as for me, I will introduce myself first. So my name is Mary Fuke. I am the program manager for the CWB Welding Foundation. So I do all of the programs for the foundation. You can actually learn about our programs right on our website at cwbweldingfoundation.org. And one of them is working on this project. So we're excited. And I am going to play Pass the Mic tonight. So I'm going to go to my left and start with, so I'm just going to introduce everybody quickly and then have them talk about who they are and what they do and a little bit about themselves. So to my left, I have Susan Crowley, who's the Executive Director of the CWB Welding Foundation. To her left is Terry Bouchard, who's the Central Region Supervisor for Certification, CWB Group. Then we have Marty Filon, did I get that right? Filon, thank you. Owner of Steel Fab in Sudbury. Guy LaChapelle, an instructor here at College Boreal. And last, but definitely not least, Jenna Butler, who is a welder and a College Boreal alumni as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Susan, and she can introduce herself a little bit further.
Thanks, Mary, and hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Susan Crowley. I have been with the foundation for about 4 years. I actually come from an education background myself. I started out as a high school science, math, and physics teacher, and a little bit of chemistry. And people say I left because I really didn't know as much as my students many times, because I just find young people just so clever. So I went back to school myself, and after a few different projects that I did in corporate Canada, I moved into the not-for-profit world and began doing corporate relations and fundraising with different universities in Ontario, namely Western and University of Waterloo. And London, Ontario is home to me. And I was just really lucky to find an opportunity to kind of bring education and fundraising and skills development together at a time when there was just such a need across Canada to really promote the skilled trades, to build awareness of the trades, to provide opportunities for students to get into and learn about welding and other skilled trades, and also to then show what the career pathways were that were very broadening from that into not just the traditional, but some of the advanced technologies as well. So I was given the opportunity to kind of come to the Canadian Welding Bureau's foundation as executive director a few years ago, and have been able to build a team with some really enlightened people on staff and partners at CWB Group, and externally to really get to know educators and students. So really proud of what we've been able to do and excited about this program, as you can tell. So Terry, over to you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Terry Boucher. I've been with the Canadian Welding Bureau a little over 10 years now. My background is basically a welder fitter. Well, I won't go through how many years ago that was, but I've been working in the steel industry for well over 35 years. I had many different roles in welding. Welder, fabricator, then eventually into automation, and then eventually I became a welding instructor for quite some time, and then here today I'm at the Canadian Welding Bureau, and I'm responsible for Ontario operations, which just blows my mind today how that happened. But my responsibility is to work with my team. Southwestern Ontario, Northern Ontario, and along with the clients that we have here in Ontario as well. So it's great to be here tonight, and thank you for having me.
Hi, my name is Marty Pilon. I've been in the welding steel fabrication for 35 years. I worked for other people for the first 29, and I opened my own business 6 years ago. And I do steel fabrication, stairs, railings, structural steel, and it's pretty much it. I started off as a welder fitter, same program that they teach, but I was at Cambrian. Boreal didn't exist back then. And now I own my own business and been never stopped since. So.
Good evening. My name is Guy Lachapelle. I'm the professor and coordinator of the welding and fabrication program here at Collège Boreal. I started here at the college in 2007, and I've been teaching part-time in the program, and I've been full-time for the last 4 or 5 years. And I've been in the welding in the welding all my life. I started young at 16 years old, started welding a little bit, took a course in Ottawa, and I've been in the welding since then. So, and that's something I really enjoy doing it. And I'm enjoying teaching it too here at the college.
He's good at it too. My name is Jen Butler. I'm a welder fabricator and proud to say that I graduated the welding program here as a second career in 2020. So I'm excited to see a couple ladies in the group. That's awesome. I am the epitome of hard work and anything that is possible for yourself. Coming into welding, I had never done it before, but the career that I had previous was building prosthetics and orthotics. So I was building arms and legs. I figured, why not everything else? So I bounced around a little bit till I found where I really wanted to be. I now weld in an aluminum shop, which is a little bit of a specialization, but I've proudly become able to get a little bit of machining work. I've done a lot of lathe work, drilling, the press. Like I can bounce in a shop, and being able to learn an environment like this and being hungry for those kinds of skills and that kind of experience is what's going to be able to make it possible for you to have a career in the trades nowadays. It's completely self-made. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you guys today.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate that. And I love all the stories and backgrounds and just hearing how young everybody is. Absolutely. So I'm going to start with questions. We're going to start with Susan, actually, because the foundation is part of the sponsor for this program. So I just wanted to touch base about who is the foundation and what do we do?
So the CWB Welding Foundation was founded just about almost 10 years ago. 2023 will be our 10th anniversary by the Canadian Welding Bureau. Management and the board of the CWB really saw the need to support their clients, support industry across Canada, which was experiencing such a significant and growing gap in people and skills. People were starting to retire more than they were entering the welding industry. And companies were finding the variety of their needs and the level of skills that they needed in their workforce. There was a significant gap between what the entry level welders knew how to do and what industry really needed. So CWB decided to start a foundation, give back to the industry, and support the foundation with programs that we would develop that would build the awareness of the opportunities for welders across Canada in all the different industry sectors with all the different skills that would be applicable there. And secondly, to really support primarily secondary and also then post-secondary education of welding and fabrication skills. And we started out by really trying to build awareness across the age group of about 12 to 17 through offering what we called Mind Over Metal camps, which were primarily and still are primarily camps for 12 to 17-year-olds, which are 5-day experiential programs where you get to learn about welding, basic welding, and do some cool projects that you can take home, build some self-confidence, and first and foremost, always learn about health and safety. So those are offered across Canada by host schools and educators, and really link young students with older students who are volunteers, with teachers, and kind of the idea is really to open their minds to different opportunities that are available. We also, and kind of the genesis of this Igniting Futures program, is we do train the trainer programs, now called educator training programs, for secondary technology teachers, a number of whom don't have welding background. It's kind of obvious there are not nearly enough welders to support industry and then education as well. So we help the secondary educators to learn basic welding and to get CWB tickets so that they feel proficient and confident in transferring those skills to their students as well. We also offer a number of student awards, and you know, I could go on about our programs. I'd love to talk to you more about them later, but honestly, I think we're starting to make a difference, and in every way, we're really glad to be here and see what you're doing and hear the testimonies of the people on the panel. So,
Thanks, Susan. I'm going to turn it over to Terry now and talk a little bit about the CWB group. And I know there's a lot of facets to the CWB group, but hopefully he can keep it at least a little short and sweet and see how we do, because we could be here for days. Yeah.
there you go, Terry.
Thank you. Okay, well, I do have a little notes here, and I'd be very upset with myself if I didn't mention all the different divisions or departments, I guess you can say, within the CWB group. I can tell you that this month we're celebrating 75 years in the welding world. 75 years, that's an accomplishment right there. So, and in 75 years, we have grown considerably. So like I said, I'd be very upset with myself if I didn't mention all the different areas of the CWB group. Okay, so the CWB group is an industry-supported private sector organization providing welding certification, management systems, registration, and training services to over 7,600 companies in 48 countries. Supported through CWB certification, that's a department I work with, CWB education. We also have registration, we have consulting, and we also have, well, the foundation, of course, and we have the CWB associated membership. The CWB group provide a comprehensive and integrated service to the welding and joining industry. We are headquartered in Milton, Ontario, Canada, with staff and offices across the country. The CWB Group is accredited by and operates under the authority of the Standards Council of Canada, or also known as SCC, as a certification body for the administration of the Canadian Standards Association, welding-related standards, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. Recognized as one of the largest and most innovative welding organizations in the world, the CWB Group reach is unique in the fact that we are a national mandated organization, so right across Canada, that has successfully transitioned into international markets as well. So bringing with us the high standards with respect to welding certification, education, and safety, of course, and membership. We, the Canadian Welding Bureau, prides ourselves in being innovative in our services and high responsive to the client's needs, which result in an important contribution to the high level of our competencies enjoyed by industry, employing welding and joining, and the consistent progress in welding technology, as well as reliability of welding products as well. Thank you. Oh, Mike.
Thanks very much, Terry. This is why I say short and sweet. After being here for 75 years, we definitely have a lot of history to share with everybody, and hopefully we'll be doing that soon. But I'm going to throw this back to Terry, actually, because we're going to get to the meat of why we're here today. So we want to talk about certification and qualifications and what's the difference, and why do we have them? Why do we need them? And what's the value of them? So Terry, can you start by just giving us a brief description of what's the difference between a qualification and a certification?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I did mention the National Building Code, and in the National Building Code, there were the mandate for structural and erection requires certification, and we have CSA standards that cover different aspects of certification. Probably, well, ones in the panel probably know. We have CSAW 47.1, which is one for fusion welding of structural steel. I heard aluminum earlier, so there's a standard for CSA 47.2, which is for fusion welding of aluminum. So these are different types of certification a company can attain. Now, for qualifications in the standards, there's aspects of what you need to have to be in order to be certified to one of these two standards. So a couple examples of that would be welding personnel, okay, would be one for sure. Of course, you would have to pass a welder qualification test, which is not a theoretical test, it's an actual practical test that you would have to do and be evaluated on that. Other qualifications as well would be a welding supervisor, be a requirement for certification for 47.1, 47.2. And then, of course, depending on which type of division and what kind of work you're going to be doing in your company, you would also have to either have an engineer, welding engineer on staff, or maybe one retained as well. So that is a difference between certification and qualification. Okay, so the National Building Code tells you what needs to be done. The standards tells you how to do it. And then in those standards, there's parts of it where you're required to have different types of certification to achieve the certifications.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Terry. That's great. So Terry talked about companies being certified. So I'd like to turn the next question over to Marty. So Marty, as an organization here in Sudbury, why is it important for you to be certified as a CWB company?
It's important to be certified because most of the jobs I bid on, any structural, pretty much every job I do requires it. If I'm not, it's very limited on what work I can do. There's very little work that doesn't require certification, and it's just part of life. You got to get. I got certified like the first week I opened my business. I applied and got, because just the work's not out there without it. the standards are there. The engineering is important. Everything I do has to be engineered, and it's all lots of liabilities, lots of you have to be responsible for what you're doing. So I have an engineer on retainer, and it has to be done properly, right? You don't want a building falling down. You want everything to stay and be done as it's supposed to be. So you have to start out right from day one with qualification and certification. I'm primarily, my guys are all certified under metal core for flat because we're in the shop or I have overhead cranes. We can flip everything. We can do 99% of our work flat. So you don't require all positions in the shop. Where if we're in the field, we have lots of stick welding, all position. So I have both. I have a little bit of deck fusion for welding steel deck, but primarily like 95% is all in the shop welding. We do as much as possible in the shop and as little as possible in the field because the field work is a lot more costly, more time consuming. So the more we can get done in the bigger pieces, the more bolting. You weld the clips in the shop, you bolt in the field as much as possible. So there's lots of other welding procedures that I don't use, that I don't need in my industry, but I'm primarily just with the flat metal core or flux core, if you want to call it. I use metal core primarily. So I started out using the solid wire, but it became the metal core is much more efficient. It's a little more expensive, but I find it's more efficient. It's a better bond. It's way easier to use.
Thanks very much, Marty. So we're here because we want to get different perspectives. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Guy now and put him on the hot seat. But as a professor and coordinator here at College Boreal in the welding program, what do you share with students about CWB certifications and qualifications, and how do you share what the value of those are in the field for them?
To make a long story short, if you got your ticket, you'll have a job. No, we're starting we get the student to prepare them to do the qualification on the position and the process they're practicing on, and we're doing the MIG, like the solid wire, the stick, flux core, metal core. And we're trying to after 2 years, usually most of the student, they'll have the 4 position with the stick, the MIG, maybe the flat horizontal, and flux core and metal core. Some of them, they go up to 4 position, like overhead, the 4 position. And I think it's a good value for the student when they go out to get a job. The employer, they could see, oh, yeah, I know, at least he did pass it, and he knows what he's doing usually.
Like I said, pass the mic night. So from that perspective, we're going to now turn it over to Gemma because she actually went through the program here and is out in the field welding now. So from your perspective, you get to see, how your tickets are actually valued in the field now. So what is your perspective on that?
All right. That was a lot, but I guess to summarize a little bit, the place that you work in has to have the license to have you work there, right? And then you apply and you say, I want to work for you. This employer does not have to say, okay, come work for me. They can say, okay, come show me what you can do. Now you've spent 2 years in college and you've been practicing your CWB and you know that you can lay your welds in the right place. But when you're coming into a new place and it's a machine you've never seen before, and there's people that you've never seen before, and there's a guy screaming over there about something that's going wrong, and you're expected to do this test to the best of your ability so that you can land yourself a job and put food on your table. That CWB test that you practiced so hard for in college, and the times and times and times over that you did it over and over again, that's in your back pocket now. That's your comfort zone. And that's what's going to guarantee the fact that you can tune everything else out. You can put your hood down and you can lay your weld. That's you in the metal now. That's it. If you can take yourself and put that to use. Something Guy told me once in the beginning of first year, he said, the scariest job I ever had to work, I had to weld the thing I had to stand on to weld the next thing. That's your life now. But when you've invested time and energy and muscle memory into being able to lay that 6-inch test, that 12-foot trailer that they're going to bring you next week, it's not going to scare you, right? That fire pit, that dock, that thing that you want to build yourself in your free time, it's going to be a piece of cake now, right? This career opens the door for anything that you want to do for yourself. Right now, I work in a shop that's building aluminum vessels and things that go underground and support life, people that are working there, right? I've done aluminum tire rim repairs because it's quick and easy and it's mindless and it's fun, right? You can take your personal time and in the money that you make, because starting off as a general laborer, you can ask for $20 an hour, right? You can make your life with that. You can start, you can grow. It's up to you. It's up to you in the metal. What relationship do you want to have with it? Do you want to just barely pass your test and be welding chairs forever? If you're happy with that and that satisfies you, fine. Do you want to know that that bridge is standing because you laid into it and your hands put that up? Own your superpower, man. It's up to you. So the CWB test, it's your entry ticket. It's the Disneyland pass that lets you do whatever you want to do after that. But it is your guarantee to yourself that the work you do is as best quality as possible. And I don't know how many of you, I know you've probably seen these tests, but for the most part, they give you a 90-degree angle and a groove, and you have to fill it. And once you filled it, you grind it flat and it looks like it's sound. It looks like it's one piece of metal again. But then they put it in the bender and you pray. But when you've done 10, 20, 40, 60, 15 years worth, you don't pray anymore. You sit there and go, I dare you to crack. I dare you. Because you know now. That's what being a tradesperson is. That's what it is. You are your skill. What do you want to be?
Thanks, Jen. I love that. Becoming one with metal. Love that. That's for sure. I'm actually going to turn it back to Jenna for a minute because she mentioned earlier that this was her second career. And I know she mentioned she was in the medical field earlier, but I'm curious, why did you choose welding and what made you become one with the metal?
Well, I was born and raised in a very small place. I am an only child and I'm female. I was fairly good at school and was able to be book smart. And it felt okay when I was in high school to think, hey, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a nurse. I want to be there. But when I got there, I lost the bright, shiny thing that makes me there because it was sterile and white, very, very white walls and white plaster. And I lost color. And being in the welding world and in the trades world, there's no two jobs that are the same. There's no two welding rods that are going to weld the same. There's no two spools of metal that are wound exactly the same and aren't going to bird's nest. Every day is a challenge. Every day is your opportunity to put something out there and to make something for yourself, of yourself, for others. And the skill was transferable. I was still building things. I was still using my hands and gonna have to use my brain and be creative and build jigs to help myself. And I was gonna have similar opportunities, but it was a bigger world. And you've gotten to know me very little, but I like to conquer big things, and I want to make sure that the jobs that I'm doing, I can do them to the best of my ability. And being in trades, there's always something new. There's always a new machine. There's always a new procedure. There's always something being tested, tried, fabricated, a challenge to be overcome. And if you're the type of person that likes a puzzle, that wants to climb professional Everest, there's no ceiling here. We literally weld underwater, We're going to be welding in space in 10 years, I'm sure.
Thanks, Jenna. I'm going to go back to certification and qualifications for a minute. So one of the interesting things that I learned, especially coming on to the CWB Welding Foundation and learning more about the group, was how many different qualifications there are. So Terry, can you give us a round number and kind of explain how many qualifications that are out there?
Oof. Tough question. There's many. Let's see here. Maybe you guys can help me out too as we go through it. But okay, so we talked about SMAW, sheet metal arc welding, all position stick. We talked about metal core. We talked about flux core welding, FCAW, all position as well. We mentioned MIG, which is also known as GMAW, so gas metal arc welding. Typically flat, horizontal. You'll see those. Not too much vertical or overhead with MIG. 29. Okay, and then we're talking. Now this is just steel. Now we'll talk about aluminum and all the different. Yeah, stainless. Yeah. Yes. So aluminum, stainless. Once again, all the different processes, and we never mentioned gas tungsten arc welding, where you're using a non-consumable electrode. So yeah, so 29 is probably pretty close. And then, what other technology that's happening in the back that we don't see? And you mentioned, welding underwater, that's a certification as well. We have 2 clients of ours that we certify for underwater welding. And then space, there's all kinds. Yeah, sky's the limit.
Thanks, Terry. That's why I asked that question, because sky can be the limit. And that's what we want to really show everybody too, is that just because you do one certain qualification doesn't mean you're limited to just that one moving forward, right? You
Tell you too is that, these are all little stepping stones in a career path. Well, in carbon steel, and we talk about carbon, there's all different grades of carbon. There's cast iron grade, malleable, ductile cast iron. There's stainless steels, and these are all little stepping stones in your career. And then different processes. And then I mentioned automation earlier. You might want to go into programming your robots, the integration of welding equipment to the robot, different material handlers, and training. Welding instruction, there's so many different avenues. I'm not looking to prove that are looking to prove where this can bring you.
So actually, I'm going to turn back to Guy and ask that question. So you've been a welder for, you said, a few years. You're still a young man, I heard. So, but why did you choose to go into being a professor and a coordinator after your welding career?
When I took my course in Ottawa, 80 and 78, 80. And I told myself as that that's what I want to do 1 year. At the end of my career, I want to teach, tell like show them what to expect and what to do. And there's so many things that I went like through, like I work confined space. I work in the mining, the structural steel, structural steel in Ottawa. Like I built we built the mall, like the city center and the St. Lawrence Mall. I worked there. I work in a fab shop for lots of years too. And we did like big tanks. Like we worked with the 2-inch steel and all those like the welding that had to be done. We had to be qualified for it, and there was qualification to be done. Like we had to do some testing, like to see if you meet this kind of steel with this, if that's gonna work. Like we send that out to be stretch tests, and it came back with like welding procedures and this, and there's so much stuff that you could learn while working. Like and that's what I want to show. And even my Mike, he's one of the teacher part time. He's like, we like to show how things is done, and at the same time the kids like they could improve. That you could see them improving every day. Like and that's my something I'm proud of. At the end of the year, when they all go in, they pass their ticket, you could see that big smile in their face and say, "Yeah, I got it." But that means they're gonna keep going, and they're gonna find a good job, and they'll be in the field for a while.
Thanks, Key. That's awesome. I love that you've taken your passion for welding and turned it into teaching as well, so you can share that passion with everybody. That's for sure. So, Susan, I'm going to turn over to you now and just ask about some career options, because I know with the foundation, we focus on awareness and education and trying to encourage more people to go into welding and welding related careers. But we've heard a lot today that you're not limited. So what are some of the other career options that people can actually look at with welding skills?
I think Mary likes to give questions that have very big answers. Right, Terry? It's interesting, and I'm really not an expert on this, but over the last few years, what I've learned is that really welding is a gateway to all kinds of careers. And, from being a graduate of a program like Collège Boreal, or going direct into employment or apprenticeship out of secondary school or a college program, or doing a second career after you've completed college, university, or being in the workforce for 10, 20 plus years. All of those provide options in different levels of welding inspectors. A number of people we've talked to get into quality testing, quality assurance roles, project management roles. I would also say, obviously, educator roles, engineering roles. One of the things that is a bit of a challenge here in Canada is that engineering and thereby project management of big projects of infrastructure dimensions, like bridges, like stadiums, like hospitals, like et cetera, they are typically put together by teams of engineers. Think about it. If those engineers don't themselves have any knowledge of welding, does that not put your project at a bit of a risk? So welding engineering is another area that Canada really wants to grow and develop. And the different programs at all the different post-secondary, apprentice, labor, and direct entry into the workforce are opening up all kinds of different avenues for people to pursue. So I think it's a career that definitely, you know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people had a view of it being very traditional. I remember when I first joined CWB and I told my family, they said, "Oh, that's like the Flashdance movie," which dates me. I think you would probably know. But but anyway, you know, it is that, and in terms of fun and basic skills, but welding careers can take off in many, many different directions and in many, many different industry sectors. A lot of young people, I'll just close by saying, you know, they're looking for a career where they know that they're doing something good. They're very concerned about our environment and the future of, of how and where we live. And so you look at some of the advanced technologies. CWB is just becoming the Center for Automotive Repair Technology Training and Testing. That's new for us. And think about what's happening in the automotive industry with electric vehicles and how that's going to change how repair is done because of the heat components in what runs those electric vehicles. We think about alternative energy. We are doing a lot of work and finding a lot of jobs, training educators and welders who are going into the nuclear industry. There's a lot of jobs there, especially in Southern Ontario at this moment. You know, medical technologies like the welding that's involved in making a pacemaker, and a lot of the minimally invasive surgical techniques now. I mean, I've just named some industries that myself I wasn't aware really had welding as a component of really changing the world, and yet there's more and more of those coming along and behind the scenes that we aren't ourselves aware of.
Thanks very much, Susan. Like she said, that's only a few of the industries that that welding touches upon. So it's really interesting to see that. Marty, we're going to pick on you now. So you said earlier that you've been in the field for quite a few years, 35 years in welding, and then 6 years in business. So that's another career option that you have, definitely, is going into self-employment. What made you go into choose to do your own business, and you know, what would you give as your advice to anybody who's interested in going that route?
So like I said, I started out at 19 taking the welding course, and within a couple of years, I always knew I wanted to run my own business. I always wanted to learn. I always pushed to learn more. Like you said, the industry, there's so many other jobs involved in a welding shop than just welding. Like welding is probably 5% of my business. There's so much more involved, and I always pushed to learn. I learned how to estimate. I learned how to do drafting. I learned how to quote jobs. Once I got to a point where I understood the whole industry, and then I started looking at possibilities, looking at buying other businesses, and I always wanted to do it. And it came to a point where I worked for another guy for 29 years, and they were changing hands. They were going to the next generation of the family. And I said, you know what? It's time for me to try it out on my own. And I just tried it one day. I left with a pencil and a pad of paper, and that's how I started. And it grows so fast. There's so many opportunities. There's so much work, different types of work you can do. But if you put out a good product and you're dependable, the business just comes to you. So that's how I started.
Thanks, Marty. That was amazing. So I know I don't want to keep everybody too long, and I know we started a little bit late, so I'm going to start wrapping it up, but I am going to ask everybody one last question. So if somebody was interested in looking at starting a career and learning some welding skills, where would you suggest that they start out, and what would you be the one piece of advice you would give them?
I would definitely check out the CWB group on the internet, our website, all the different educational programs, all the things that are there for free through CWB and our association and the CWB Education Group and Foundation. So I think that would be one way of kind of gathering your thoughts and ideas, and also kind of determining what are your questions. Do you need to know? What would you like to learn before making a decision like that? And then I think through the people the people like my colleagues up here, ask questions, find people who you can talk to at school, in industry, in roles that you might be interested in, and find out more. I think there's so many people who are willing to help, and so many people whose passions you can collect by just doing some of that work on your own to investigate.
Thanks, Susan. I'm going to ask everybody else, but I am going to just ask Jenna one thing, because she is a woman in the trades and they're still very underrepresented. So what would you give your advice to any woman or anybody else underrepresented in the trades?
Pick on me all you want. It's good. That's what I'm here for. Jump, do it, test yourself, push yourself, give yourself the chance, because at the end of the day, every weld you're going to lay is a new opportunity. And someday it might not work. Someday the machine just might be temperamental. Someday it might be you. But when it starts to click, and when you start to see progress in yourself, and you start to feel that success and see that success and start building bigger things for yourself, it's limitless. It absolutely is limitless. You can give yourself any opportunity, big or small. You know, there's little welds just as much as there are big welds. So the welding world is limitless. So I would say don't give up. Find yourself an ally. Learn as much as you can, grow. And when you do get your first job, you find the oldest man in the shop and you be his friend, because he's going to know more than you learned before, more than the guy that taught you. He's going to know different things, and he'll know different ways, and something else is going to stick, and you're going to learn something else, and another skill is going to start to get developed. You can build yourself that way. So I would just say, don't sell yourself short. Build yourself instead.
Thanks, Jenna. Terry, your turn. What if a piece of advice would you give them? Where do you think they should start?
Well, for me, my career path was actually I wanted to be a lawyer out of high school, but I had the opportunity in high school to take a welding course. I don't know why I was destined to do that, but it changed my life. I struck an arc, and I just blew my mind. And I was able to build something myself, fabricated something and built something. And just the manipulation of the arc, striking an arc and creating a weld puddle and walking that across a straight line. And it excited me. And I made a career out of it in 35 years. So if my advice is, give it a try. I mean, if your career path in any trade, try carpentry, try machining, electrical, get a taste of everything. If your school offers it, do it. Give it a try. It might just turn that switch like it did for me, and bring you places. Sky's the limit.
Marty, how about yourself?
If I get a young guy comes to work for me and doesn't know what he wants to do, if he's interested in welding, I always encourage him to take the college courses and learn as much as you can. Because if you come to work for me, I'm limited to what I do in my business. So I do structural steel, I do stairs and railings, but like they said, there's so many other parts of the welding industry that I don't do, where if you come to school, you'll learn, you might learn a little bit of TIG. At least you get the basics. You learn to make all the different processes. If you just came to work for me, you would learn one or two of those things. But if someday I'm not there or I retire or I go to business, if you have more education, you have more opportunities to go different places, and ask lots of questions. Like I know the school can't teach everything, but they try to teach you a little bit of the basics of every part that they can, which gives you more opportunities later on, right? It's just the more you can understand and learn, the further you're going to go. You'll be like, the biggest thing is if you're willing to learn, I'm willing to teach, but if you're not willing to learn or change or do different things, you're always going to be stuck in that same position, right? Like you'll go to a different shop. They may not do the same things I do, but if you say, well, I did that in school, I remember it, I just got to brush up on my skills, they're probably may hire you and say, okay, well, let's try you out and give you a chance, right? But if you say, well, I can't do that because I never learned it, then you're limited to where you could go, right?
I'm just going to turn it over to Guy for the last word tonight.
I always say, if you like working with your hand and if you like building stuff, if you watch how it's made on TV, you're curious about what stuff are made, how they are made, I think it's a good job for yourself. Because that's how for myself, when I started, on a summer job, they put me as a helper for a welder, where they're in Temisco, where they build trailers. And the guy just showed me a little bit here and there how to run a bead, and I said, you know what, I like it. So that's where I decided right there. That's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. Like that's what I like about this. And when you lay a well, it's nice. You got to tell yourself the next one's got to be nicer, and the next one's got to be nicer. So you're always pushing yourself to do better and better all the time.
Thanks very much, Guy. I like the story where you said you had to weld something, stand on it, and then weld the next thing. So I guess that's really is about trusting yourself, isn't it? So that's right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to our panel up here for their wonderful insights. I know this is a really big topic. We only basically touched the surface of everything, but I encourage everybody to check out the websites, the CWB Welding Foundation and the CWB Group, as well as College Boreal. Check out the programs, check out information on there. There's tons of information that will help you out understand more about this. But I am going to open it up for questions. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions? I'm going to see if we can find out if we can see the chat on the Zoom. I'm not sure if we can, but we'll see what we can do. Does anybody have any questions? You are all too quiet tonight. Oh, good. You don't. Aw. I will. What's your question? How long is the ticket good for, and does it expire?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's test your knowledge.
Sorry.
So the question was, how long is my ticket valid for? I weld a ticket and I weld it with one company and I don't want to work with them anymore. And I still own that ticket, but I have to show proof that I've welded for within 90 days of having left that employer. Otherwise, it's no longer valid. So if you have private projects at home or things like that, it doesn't count because you're not in a certified shop. You have to be welding on certified equipment in a certified environment to still have that ticket be valid. If you're in that type of environment and your employer has taken ownership of that certification, of that insurance that you are qualified, it's valid for 2 years with them. Now, we had mentioned different positions, flat, horizontal, vertical, overhead. Now, if I own a flat ticket and I'm welding in flat, it's good for 2 years. If I own an overhead ticket and now I need to retest for that ticket, it counts as 4. It counts as 4 positions now. So when I need to recertify that ticket, I do what's called a check test. It's half in vertical, half in overhead, and it's cut and tested the same way. If I pass that, all 4 of my positions remain valid for another 2 years. If I fail, I need to take all 4 tests again and have all 4 tests pass. Now, again, I passed a test in FlexCore. Can I weld GMAW? No, you need to pass the GMAW certification test because, again, different metal, different gas, different fusion. So in my possession, I have FlexCore metal core flat. I have aluminum flat, which is a whole different category in MIG, and I have my GMAW flat. So for the most part, in any shop that I walk into, if they have an overhead crane, I'm able to weld what they need me to do. But I need to show that I've done it everywhere, each one, 90 days. How'd I do?
Very good.
2 years. Can I have a break for a second? And you said something very important there. She mentioned history. So it doesn't matter which employer you're working with, as long as they're certified, your qualifications travel with you. So even if you misplace a welding card, we have the history in our database to see who you are, as long as everything matches up of your name and so on and so forth. That history will travel with you for the rest of your life.
Thanks, Terry.
Hi, great presentation. Is there other trades that the tickets will be recognized? Let's say like as a millwright or iron worker or boiler maker? And just to know if it's a value for those trades also.
So if I understand the question correctly, so if you have welder qualifications and you're an iron worker or boiler maker, is that what your question is? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that, once again, that'll travel with you as well. Yeah. Actually, on the flight up here, there's a bunch of iron workers going to a job site and they'll have their hard hats and CWB certified welder. And yeah. Anybody want to add to that or no?
So growing up, this is the only exposure that I remember to having to welding. Is my dad was an electrician, and I remember being very young and my mom explaining to me that he wasn't coming home for dinner because he had to pass a welding test. I had no idea, had no concept of understanding what that was at the time, but he's in a different trade and it was required to have one person on the crew have a ticket in case a bracket needed to be put on, in case a box was missing a corner, in case. Because in terms of trades, you start to talk about things like man hours. If one person can do the job and has the equipment to do so, sometimes that's easier than getting someone who that job technically is, bring them in, get 3 days worth of, you know what I mean? It works out. So if you're multi-skilled, multi-talented, the more work there's going to be out there for you.
Thanks very much, Jenna. Any other questions? I'm going to ask one more. So if I have a qualification, and can I change employers, and how do I change that? Does that affect my qualification or my ticket?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's actually, I can probably deal with that.
Yeah, so if you come to me and you have a welding ticket, I just call the CWB, and if I'm qualified and certified in that same process, I can transfer it to my company. But if you have a welding ticket and I'm not certified as a company, I can't transfer it. Then it becomes, it'll probably run out of time, or it'll be obsolete. I can only transfer a welding ticket that my company is certified to do. but they're easily, I just call, they transfer it, they send a new ticket with my name on it, like my company name with your name on it.
Jenna has a copy of her ticket up here. If anybody wants to see afterwards, she'll be showing that off. That's for sure.
Yeah, so the welder qualifications, I just want to comment on this because this is to a lot of welders that have these tickets. It's a badge of accomplishment. You got to think these tests are, and you heard from the panel here, you're not always successful on these tests. You may have failed once, you may have failed twice, but eventually you'll get it. And I think Guy said, yeah, like the students have a big smile on their face at the end of the year because they have these tickets. And yeah, and I remember we did a study one time, and we said, you know what, let's think about these welder cards and maybe go paperless. And no, they still, the clients and the welders still wanted that hard piece of plastic in their wallet, that badge of accomplishment. And I just want to say that. That was very nice.
Thanks very much, Terry. That's what I hear too. It's definitely a badge of honor to have those.
Represents hours. It represents hours and hours and hours of dedication that you put towards owning your skill, right? And anyone can walk in with a ticket, but when you walk in with your ticket, he's going to want to see how valuable that ticket is, right? You can barely pass, or you can pass with flying colors. But when you come down and it push comes to shove and you need to lay that bead, you need to know that it's going to pass. You need to know what you're looking for. And when you've done these tests over and over and over again, hopefully each time it passed, even though this one passed and the one that you did 5 years after passed, hopefully you should be able to see a difference. They're both worth the same. They both get you entry to the interview, but it's what you do with it after that's really going to earn you your dollar.
If I may add, if you're working on a site and an inspector walks in and tap you on, you're welding on a beam, he taps you on your shoulder and says, "Are you qualified to do that?" You need that proof. You got to show that. If you don't even bother to weld that because you're not qualified for it.
That's a really good point, Guy. Thank you. I will wrap it up because I know everybody is probably looking at those snacks pretty closely by now, but I just want to say thank you very much. And could everybody join me in a round of applause for our panel tonight? And to everybody on Zoom, I'm sorry that I could not get to any questions, but I encourage you to email us. You can reach us on our website at CWBWeldingFoundation.org or CWBGroup.org, and we'd be happy to answer any of the questions. Plus, this will be posted on our website, as well as College Boreal, I believe, is going to post it, I hope, too. Making that promise without asking. Sorry, Daniel. But I'm really happy to have everybody here today in the audience and on Zoom. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined in tonight as well and taken the time out of their night to do this. So thank you very much. And I hope everybody has a great night.